sweat the small stuff. A healthy business sweats the small stuff. Now, I know there's a book called Don't Sweat the Small Stuff. Have you read it? I bought it for my wife as well. But I'm saying today, sweat the small stuff, because that's the sign of a healthy cash flow. That'll help you improve your the health of your business. So invoicing is just as important, ladies and gentlemen. So here's a couple of tips on invoicing. Tip number 1, probably the most important one. Get yourself a decent invoice. Rushing off to the CNA and the PNA and all the other A's and buying this book that says invoice factuur. Okay? And then you write down you owe Thayn Niemand and Associates 250 Rand, and then sending that to the customer, she does not work. Because if I'm the customer and I receive an invoice from the CNA with that invoice factuur on it, and I've got another invoice that is really smart, and it's in color, and it's really, someone's taken the trouble to do a good invoice. Which invoice am I going to pay first? I'm going to pay the good one first. So it's a simple thing as the appearance of your invoice. I understand that it costs money, but if there's anything I can do to get that money in as quickly as possible, I'm going to do that. So number 1, get your invoice looking good. Number 2, make sure that your invoice goes out on time. We are so well known as business owners for sending out invoices a month or 2 later. If that job is done today, send the invoice tomorrow. If you've delivered the goods today, send the invoice today. So important. When you send that invoice, please, number 3, make sure that all the information that your customer wants is on the invoice. They might want an order number on it. They will want their VAT number on it. So make sure that you double check. In fact, make sure that you triple check that the invoice has got everything on it. Because the last thing you want to do is go hand it in on the 24th for payment on the 25th. They send it back and they say, you didn't put our account number on it. And if you're drafting the invoice, get someone else to check it for you. Very, very important. The day after that invoice is due, make that phone call I was telling you about. You will improve your control, your debtor control immensely just by doing that. The other problem with getting paid so late is that it costs you, ladies and gentlemen, because you've now priced your tender at 1,000 Rand a unit. But you're pricing it on the understanding that you're going to get your money when they say you're going to get your money. Now they pay you 6 months later. You have lost interest, opportunity cost, everything on that 1,000 Rand because it's not in your pocket for the next 6 months. You're in a tender. You have to understand that you're in a price war. So what I said to my customer, if you can, just increase your price a little bit to provide for that delay in payment. So if you've got customers, I'm amazed that we never do credit reference checks on our customers that we give credit to as small business owners. Okay, because we as small business owners think we can't do credit checks and credit reference. What's stopping you from asking your customer, please give me a name of 2 other suppliers that I can phone? So from a health checkpoint, I can't tell you what your gross profit should be. It's industry driven. You should know what your gross profit should be. Okay, so if you've got a high volume turnover, your gross profit should be pretty low, 13 or 14%. The market, the catering industry, I think, should be around about a 50-60% gross profit. As a consultant person that sells time, it should be around 90 to 100% gross profit. Find out what your gross profit should be. Search the internet. Go on to the annual financial statements of listed companies. See what their gross profit is in the same industry that you're in, and then see where you should be as far as your gross profit and your pricing is concerned. So, but I can tell you that you should have a net profit of anywhere between 12 to 20%. Because why should I be taking 5% as per my bank example when I should be getting about 20%? Because the risk is so much higher in your business. So if your net profit is around 12 to 20%, I want to suggest that that's a pretty healthy profit. That's how you check how healthy you are. Your net asset value and liquidity. You want to borrow money, you want to get financing, you want to be a healthy business, net asset value of 2:1. So for every 1 rand of debt you have, you should have 2 rand of asset. So if on my left-hand side column, I have 100,000 rand as asset value, I should have 50,000 rand on the right-hand side column. Not so. The same with my expenses. If my income is 50, my expenses should be 25. I want to suggest that that is a healthy business. I also want to suggest that if you have got cash flow in your business that is equivalent of 2 to 6 months turnover, you are in a healthy position. So if your monthly expenses, if there's no sales, your monthly expenses are 50,000 rand, you should have a minimum of 100,000 rand in the bank to be a healthy business. Does that make sense? Am I helped a little bit from the financial perspective? That to me would be a nice, healthy business. Staff are so important. A healthy business will not suffer from laboritis, which is the fear of the Department of Labor. Okay. Now, the fear of the Department of Labor is because you have not complied with your statutory obligations. You haven't got employment contracts. You can print these off the Department of Labor website if you don't have them. You haven't registered with UIF and SARS. Your staff are not registered with UIF or SARS. Understand, SARS have given us until, I think, February to register our staff. Even though in the old days we didn't have to do this, now we have to do this. Every staff member you employ, you've got to notify the revenue that you're employing this person. So please do that before the end of February. Workman's compensation. Problem. A lot of businesses don't register under the workman's compensation. It's now called the Compensation Commissioner. If your staff member falls down the steps while he's working, they will pay for his hospitalization or her hospitalization. If you're not registered with them, you're going to be paying for it because the steps were slippery. So a healthy business is fully compliant with the contracts, fully compliant with the registrations, including workman's compensation. And if you have a factory or manufacturing concern, and in general a business needs to comply with the Occupational Health and Safety Act. When the Department of Labor chap rocks up with his brightly colored bakkie and you start panicking, then it means you don't have a healthy business from this perspective. Please, it is actually very easy to do. You need to have a look at that. CCMA, stigmatism, another illness that I find. The reason for that is because you don't have written disciplinary and grievance procedures. They need to be in writing so that when your staff has a problem, you need to know how to deal with that. Have it written down in a documentation form. Again, a lot of this I know is expensive, but it's amazing what you can find on the internet and just by buying a book and reading through it. Have their job descriptions well written out so that they know what is expected of them. Have a review system. A standard operating processes are very, very important. Now, let me tell you, from a standard operating process, it is so important that these things are written down. How many of us, on a Friday afternoon, 5 o'clock, you are at the office on your own? The staff are gone. And the phone rings in your reception. And you don't know how to answer the phone. Don't. Put up your hand. So I'm one of those. So what I did is I got the receptionist to write out a list for me. And it says things like, receiving messages while busy on the phone. You're not allowed to laugh now. Lift handset. Okay, lift handset. Press star. Press star. Dial 65. Dial 65. Press hash. Listen to confirmation, then replace handset. Because I don't know how to do this. I know how to do financial stuff. I can draft contracts. I can do tax returns. But don't ask me to answer the phone if I'm sitting in my office and the phone is ringing in the reception. Isn't that so? Photocopy machine. Monday morning, you've got to present this presentation of 30 pages to a client. And now you're at the end. You're printing it. Photo machine decides it's going to jam. No one's there. It's 7 o'clock at night. What do? On my photocopy machine, there's a list. This is how you unjam the photocopy machine. Now, if I'm so pathetic with those little things, I should be more worried about the big things, not so. So when you're employing somebody, this is how we recruit staff. Number 1, place an ad on Gumtree or place ad in local newspaper. Number 2, the wording of the advertisement should be like this. In mine it says, please send 2-page CV to this fax number. When the faxes arrive, throw away all those CVs that are 3 pages long. But I asked for 2 pages, not so. And if they can't read, well, then I don't want to employ them. Then the next step is, I've got 10 2-pages CVs. I then choose 5 of them. Thayn chooses top 5. I interview those top 5. Next step, I interview those top 5 with my 3 staff members, because they've got to work with this person. But it's step for step for step. That's a process. And it's as simple as starting with lift handset. We need to have that in place with our staff so that you don't forget to do their review. They do an increase after a year, something like that.